Hello and welcome back to Talent Thrives Here, our podcast where we talk to people managing people. Our special guest today is Josh Cutler. Josh is VP of Learning and Development at HR Talent Systems in New York City. He's an HR guy at a top level, and he is the world's top HR super connector. He makes more introductions in the HR space than anyone in the world. Josh, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on today.
Thanks, Lance. It's great to be with you.
Your background in learning and development has been in a number of progressive companies. I believe, if we get into it, you've started as a teacher as well. I wondered if you could tell us sort of where you fit in the marketplace and what you bring to the table.
Sure. So, since my background is a bit different than what you traditionally see, it's probably easier if I start where I am now and then work backwards, so you'll be able to follow the trajectory more easily. I'm the VP of L&D at HR Talent and Systems. We're an HR solutions firm focused on high growth companies, and that could be anything of really any size or scale or scope. The only thing we don't do is anything heavily regulated because we don't get into compliance or anything like that. But really, any other type of HR challenge that a company may be facing, we can pretty much handle. I should be clear that we're not a PEO. We don't go in and provide ongoing support on an indefinite basis, but rather we see success as when we're able to separate ourselves from the client, and that they're able to take what we've helped them build and then run it on their own without our assistance. Now, my role is more as an interim VP of L&D. So when we go in to partner with the client, I'm not just going in to solve a quick problem and leave, but rather I get fully embedded within them over a longer period, as if I were the equivalent of their full-time head of L&D. The only difference is on paper that I actually work for HR Talent and Systems and not for the client directly. But the scope of the work and all the deliverables involved are identical to a full-time employee. Going
Excellent.
back over the course of my career, I actually started my career as a teacher. I spent 14 years teaching ESL in the New York City school system. I had both children and adults, uh, and I taught in Queens, which is the most ethnically diverse place in the world, when I had students from at least 60 or 70 different countries speaking dozens of different languages. Then from there, I created my own company called Teach the Trainer, and my business model was really simple. I incorporated the strategies that educators have been using effectively for years, because they know how well it works, and I applied it in a corporate setting. But to my great astonishment, nobody has ever tried that before.
Mm.
But it worked really well. Then I got hired into HR Talent and Systems from there, and now it's time to hopefully find my next opportunity elsewhere.
Fair enough. Great. And I would like to say that networking is your superpower.
Yes.
Tell my audience a bit about how you do networking right.
Yes, so I've created a totally new and different approach to networking that nobody's ever done before. Given the sheer volume of introductions that I have to make, bear in mind, I routinely make over 100 introductions every day. So to be able to grow and scale that accordingly and still have time to get the work done that I actually get paid for, I had to create my own approach. So really, it's basically networking on steroids, if you will. So I have to basically cull everything down. Whenever I have a networking conversation with somebody, I don't have time to really get to know them on a deep level. Not because I don't care, but because my only focus at that time is figuring out who the right people are to introduce them to and making it happen as efficiently as possible. Really, my networking focus is on both really, it's on the three parts: quality, quantity, and speed. My goal is to get you introduced to as many people as possible who can help you, and to do it as quickly as I possibly can. And in so doing, I divide my HR connections into four broad categories. I can't think in terms of whether I know people at certain companies, or because people ask me this all the time. And I can't really narrow it down that way because that's just too much information to keep track of. So there are actually four broad categories that I make where I divide my connections into. So the first is internal HR executives, which include both full-time and fractional people. The second is HR executive recruiters, that's you. The third is third-party providers like vendors, consultants, and so forth. And the fourth is other miscellaneous people who are well connected in the HR space. And based on the need that each person has, I'm able to figure out which category to make introductions into, because that's really the best way for me to go. And over time, I see some patterns developing. So generally speaking, if someone is looking for an executive level HR role, I'll introduce them to my network of recruiters. If they're looking to provide a third party service, I can introduce them to my network of consultants, and they'll introduce them to more key decision makers that they're looking for. There are occasional instances where somebody has a different type of request, but it almost never happens that somebody has a networking need that I'm not able to fulfill, unless it's something totally unrelated to HR.
Right, right, right. Yeah, no, I mean, you and I connected, I don't know, 10 or days ago or a couple weeks
Yeah.
back. And I remember, I think it was maybe the
Mhm.
first or second day where all of a sudden my inbox on LinkedIn blew
Yeah.
up and it was just you saying, hey, you guys might have a great connection, have a great
Right.
chat, boom,
Right.
boom, boom. And I think there were 8 or 10 in the first few hours. And I was like, wow.
At
And
least, yeah.
then, yeah,
I
it
actually
was,
practice what
it's
I
great.
preach.
Yeah.
I don't just claim that I'm the world's top HR super connector. I actually deliver. And that's one
Right.
thing I always say to people whenever we start a networking call. It's easy for me to claim something. Let me actually show you how true it actually is.
Right. Right. Very, very good. Good. Well, that gives us a great snapshot on your background and your superpower. I wonder if you see any trends in the employment marketplace right now. Anything you want to comment on, or anything you can see? Or
Yes. So as we know, especially in the HR market, this has been the worst last couple of years that I've seen, certainly any time in recent memory. I mean, the layoffs, it looks like, are starting to slow down. At least there is a light at the end of the tunnel where, basically for the last couple of years we've been stuck at the bottom of the well, and now it looks like there's a little bit of a rope to start
yeah,
gradually pulling ourselves out of. The way I describe it is that, when you answer a bunch of questions wrong on Jeopardy, and then you have to answer a bunch of questions right just to get back to zero. Now we're in the getting back to zero stage. So we
right, right,
basically have to get to the point where we're at least starting to break even before we can start moving forward. And that's the part that I see very, very slowly starting to happen. Um,
right.
and and the difference is, though, is that in this case, these layoffs, for the most part, didn't have happen because of the overall state of the economy, which is basically fine. What I saw in this particular instance is that most of these layoffs happened because a lot of companies just overhired during the COVID and post-COVID years. They hired more people than their revenue could sustain. And basically, because they mismanaged their finances and handled their own uh, money irresponsibly, they decided to use HR as the convenient scapegoat, and rather than sitting and addressing their own shortcomings. So basically, a lot of people unfortunately got laid off through no fault of their own because other people dropped the ball. And that's
Fair enough.
which is not usually how it goes.
Right. Fair enough. Um, fair comment. And we're seeing it across a number of different industries and a number of different professions right now that it's a very soft hiring market,
Yeah,
right? And to your point too, in a number of different areas, there are signs
right.
of hope. Flashlights come on in here and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a wild last couple of years, I think, for many
Mhm.
industries. So, um, and I remember distinctly just when the vaccine started to flow. It was
Yeah.
2021. um,
Mhm.
my inbox exploded
Right.
with global VP of talent acquisition
Mhm.
jobs all over the
Mhm.
United States and Canada. Bang, 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 bang. Like
Right.
people were getting ready to ramp up. So now we're on the other side of that. I think you're to your point. A lot of companies kind of bit off more than they could chew, and then there's a correction. And I to your point, I hope we're on the other side of that now, and cooler heads will prevail, and we'll see more people hopefully getting back to work
Yeah, I
later this
mean,
year.
eventually we will get back to a full HR employment market. It's just going to take some time. I mean, I remember in the
Right.
years leading up to COVID, I was getting multiple VP interviews every week, in some cases more than once a day.
Right.
And we will get back to that level eventually, where there are enough jobs for just about every qualified person at
Yeah.
the level of salary where they should be. But it's just going to take some time until we do.
Yep. Fair enough. Fair enough. With the recent shift in government in the United States, have clients and businesses start to shift policies on DEI and things like that, or is it way too early still?
Really, it's still too early to tell. Remember, Trump only came into office not even 2 weeks ago, as of the time of this
Right.
recording.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see what actually happens. I don't really think we're at a point yet where I can make a prediction about what will happen because it really is just too soon.
Right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Good. And beyond the late breaking headlines in the news, if I could say, what does Josh bring specifically to L&D, to your clients when you're in front of
Yeah.
a client, and how do you break through their hurdles that they
Yeah.
may have, got stuck at?
Well, I think the key to understanding L&D is to actually recognize it for what it truly is. It's not just a function of HR, it's an educational function within a business, and it needs to be addressed simultaneously from both a business perspective as well as an educational perspective. And that means that it needs to follow not only appropriate business protocol, but also appropriate educational protocol. And that's the part where it typically falls short. So the specific lens that I can bring is that having actually been both an educator for many years as well as an HR executive for many years, is that I can think simultaneously as both an HR partner to the business as well as an educator choosing the appropriate methodology to link the learning need to the business outcome. And that's where a lot of learning initiatives really fall short. It's not only about uh, figuring out the core competencies on the macro level, but also figuring out what each individual employee needs to succeed on the micro level as well. Because that's the part which ultimately will lead to the increase in employee engagement and retention. And I see so many companies say, "Well, this is what we as a company need to do to drive things forward," but then there's a disconnect because a lot of the employees will say, "Well, that's great for them, but how does this help take my career to the next level?" And that's the part that's missing. You need to address both pieces, otherwise, it's not going to work.
Sure. Excellent. Good. Well, look, Josh, thanks for being on the show today. If people want to find you, I know you're on LinkedIn. Is there anywhere else they should go, or is LinkedIn the best way to
LinkedIn
catch
is
you?
absolutely the best place to find me. I should also include that I wrote that Troop HR, which is a large HR networking group in the New York area, asked me to write an article about the hidden nuances of networking in the HR space that nobody has ever written down before. Basically, it's a compilation of everything you should have learned about networking in HR but never bothered to learn. I'll
Right.
gladly send you that link, and by all means, please share it with all your colleagues
I will.
so that they can
Yep.
share it with their colleagues because really anybody who is in any way connected to the HR space will benefit from reading it. So if it
Cool.
helps anybody at all, to really to see other people succeed and knowing that I played a part in making that happen, that's really where I derive the greatest satisfaction from my work. So, uh, by all means, please read it and feel free to reach out. This goes to everybody.
Well,
Reach out if you have any questions, and we can see
excellent.
how we can help each other.
Awesome. Thanks again, Josh. Hope to bump into you very soon. Take care now.
Yeah, well, believe me, you will. You will.
Okay,
Have
great.
a great day,
Bye-bye.
Lance. Yeah, bye
Yeah, you
bye.
too. Bye-bye.